Oh,
Yep.
I didn't know about that strife debuff on the barbarian that wasn't working. That
No, it wasn't working for everybody. It was all classes were able to benefit from those attributes, and they updated it kind of stealthily. There's still certain ones that do take full effect, like maximum health and movement speed. Those, as far as I know, are still unaffected.
thank you, Tano. Thank you for the
But the
follow.
list has kind of shrunk in terms of the value. Block was one of them that was still very high value early on, and as some of the reforged changes came out, I think that uh, that's when the update snuck in.
Insane.
All right, I'm
Yeah, it was
moving up.
undocumented, and we don't even have a exact date.
Yeah, I'm thinking about class changing. I'm just thinking about going to barb. I'm just hesitant to switching from the intelligence to strength again. It's not fun.
No, in my experience, just from having done it a bunch of times, doing it prior to a new difficulty threshold has been considerably better, just because of the number of people that are looking to farm dungeons. It seems when the new difficulty gets reached, there's far less people searching, but that's probably going to be less of a factor now that you have cross-server dungeons and so forth, and you may have less of a factor just being on Twitch, because you can probably get people to group with you just while you're live and so forth. But I farm a lot early mornings just because that's when I'm most active, and having to solo a lot of the dungeons is just kind of, I don't know, boring, really.
Yeah.
And when you have no set pieces swapping from strength to in or something like that, it's just kind of exaggerated.
So I'm in a cool position because I play in essence as the Immortal, so I don't really need to be doing a high DPS, character. I can just, I'm just gonna have my gear for the Shadow War. So, being able to class change, to me, it wouldn't really hurt if I didn't have everything right away. I just want to pick something that I'm gonna have fun. And if the barbarians are going to be the next meta, or go back to the meta class in the melee on the BG, I kind of want to be a part of the bandwagon for once. Because I used to be a monk, the monk wasn't. I class changed the moment the class change came into existence, and I lost the ability to be able to play as a strong monk. And then in a scenario where I haven't really played the meta class. The barb's gonna be it. I want to be a part of it at least once.
Oh, it's going to be it. It's already started. It'll just be, I don't know, maybe 2 weeks before everybody catches on.
Yeah, as soon as the Essence Mastery stuff came out, I'm not sure. I'm kind of surprised that didn't happen sooner. The huge amount of abilities got like 20% more damage or combinations, and as soon as the any lethality increase, then you would, and then with no corresponding defense, all the defensive abilities just got like 3.2% cooldown reduction or something so like trivial that it doesn't really make sense. Like, why is this an essence, or why is this a part of the update? And so Undying Rage just became like incredibly strong. Like it was always one of the strongest abilities in the game. But now it's bonkers. I will say that I feel like the lack of build diversity is probably one of the major issues in PvP currently. Like build diversity between like some of the classes, like DHs are one of the most unengaging like one trick pony classes in the entire game, it across all content modes. Very surprised but somehow has the most loyal fan base. I don't know.
Well, you don't even use the armory as a barbarian, right? You're not even using different builds for many things. You pretty much just have one build and you go at it. Or am I wrong about that?
I would say that if you were running a support barb, you could have a separate loadout, for sure. but yeah, by and large, it's the same. You might have a few different sets that you would run, uh, but a lot of the skill, like in PvP, you have like two different types of builds that you might run. You might run the whirlwind, like kind of CC support build where you were like with the suck in or the knockback, and then you have the assassin build that someone, if you've seen like players like Hanmas or Big Dog, Big Dog and Raging Pony have a lot of videos that of them like kind of finding finding like high resonance players to one shot, and they're running the lacerate build, kind of furious charge knock up lacerate with a massive crit, and just trying to get those like little like one hit kills on players that don't have a recourse for it. So you do have some. It depends on your play style. They whirlwind bars would generally better for like playing on objectives, and the new fire whirlwind is extremely good for pushing tempo, and especially against like lower resonance players, they're able to really have a massive effect on them, despite killing everything in sight, and kind of are really one of the only classes that are incentivized to keep on keep on pushing. They actually get more resources out of it. So I think you can play a lot of different versions of it at there. I think barbs actually have some of the higher build diversity, just because like you do switch between two different play styles um in a major way, like in terms of like if you're doing furious charge or a whirlwind build.
Sheriff and all
At
these
least
guys,
play
the
style changes.
all our East Coast guys, at least the ones in my servers that are always in BG, all these guys went to Barb. Sheriff went back to Barb. A lot of people went back to Barb.
Sheriff does about a week in, week out. I feel like just because I think he's waiting for Demon Hunter to make its rightful return. Demon Hunter there was one week where Demon Hunter was, I think, appropriately balanced for people. So they're in between when the escape essence for like allowing you to have multiple charges of escape, and kind of being able to kind of rewind time. There was a period when like of 6 days before Vithu's Urge's 4-piece got nerfed, and they like, so it was dealing, or you were able to get like 60% or double the stated attack speed from the 4-piece there, and Demon Hunters were able to keep that up near 100% with their kit, allowing, and their primary attack class, so and doing most of the damage with primary attack. Their animations were 60% faster. Is that their skill cap for players that were playing Demon Hunter at the time went from being almost trivial like one shots as a necro, like I mean playing a necro as an assassin, to actually being tough matchups, because their ability to reposition themselves and juke any kind of CC that I might be doing on, and actually I was having very great duels with like players like Ludra, and where it was almost unfair because they didn't have any CC, or they would have to put themselves in so much danger to try and get a fear off. They went from actually being able to like stand their ground and play the class at a significantly higher level than what I had like. And I didn't think it was unbalanced. I thought that it just like kind of unlocked the class fantasy more. And then then 6 days later, after this kind of build was started getting popular, all the hopes and dreams got shattered.
Yeah.
Escape had the ability to take you out of crowd control, and with all the attack speed buffs that they had, it would reduce the cast time of it. And when all that got taken from them, they basically still just get locked in CC now.
You gotta be really good to dodge. It's very difficult to play at DH for sure.
Yeah, well, it just became impossible. The animations just took too long. and they weren't able to get back on the offensive fast enough.
Well, now, what
And
do
you
you
could
think?
still
A question: do you think that that was because they were low on attack speed? Because that was the issue that I was having with the Crusader. All my shields were getting interrupted, and then somebody eventually mentioned to me that, oh, you know, you're getting interrupted because you don't have a fast enough attack speed for your stuff to render faster than other people.
it's a mix of server stability issues, which is like server stability has progressively gotten worse, I think, over the course. And so things like it specifically applies to knockbacks. Knockbacks and anything that is something that displaces you from your current position. I think one of the things that you'll notice if you PvP a lot is that players are rarely where you see them on your screen. If you've ever tried to like uh, fear somebody as a necro, you often like will have to be in front of them if you're chasing them down, because their character model, like according to the server and not your client, is actually further ahead. It's just a discrepancy that happens a lot. But with things like knockbacks or things that like either impede or stop your position, any kind of latency or any kind of discrepancy between the server and you will cause basically your abilities to be like rewritten, because the game will come back and say like you were actually knocked back like a full second ago. It'll consume your cooldowns and do this because it has to tell your client that you are in this place, and anything that happened when you weren't in that but after you were supposed to be in that place no longer happened, except your cooldowns are still consumed. And yep, go ahead, Lida.
Oh, I was being saying that that sucks. It's true.
Yeah, so certain abilities have like longer cast animations, which I think like if you ever see your character like waving their arms before your ability gets they put them back at their sides and you go back into the default position, the longer that animation is. And this is why V2's 4-piece was almost every build had to be running V2's 4-piece. There were rarely any builds that were I mean, they were viable, but they weren't nearly top tier. And any class that could maintain 100% uptime with
7 to
those
90
was
turn
like
up,
almost
okay.
unassailable. Because it just made the game feel so much more responsive, and you were able to mitigate all of these issues in a much cleaner way. And effectively, the other crazy thing about the V2's pre-nerf is that all of the slows or things that would slow down your attack, like getting like partially frozen or a kind of freeze mechanic, would keep you wouldn't even be close to that 50% attack speed thing. You would reduce you just enough to get you underneath the max attack speed. So players were pretty much playing. If you had V2s up, you were unslowable. Your primary primary attacks reduce like attack speed. Wouldn't even have an effect on a player that had V2s on them, or a biting curse wouldn't. So anything that did that now would take a full effect, and V2s is pretty much negated. So they're like, that was also like the kind of secret sauce behind that the V2's bug is that all things that would have actually reduce attack speed pretty much were negated by the
Everybody
buff being
switches,
something that brought you over.
I guess, from the Demon Hunter. Yeah, I was wondering why not just pretty much instead of taking V2s back, just fix the percentage value to what people are actually getting it, but that makes sense. Because it did throw a lot of stuff off. I mean, I did see a huge chunk of change after the V2's nerf. It made it accustomed me to play it a specific way, and then I had to completely change the way that I played to a different build to try to compensate for not having that additional beneficial effect duration.
Yeah, I think the issue with V2s is that it was just too good. V2s, while it made the game, I personally enjoyed like all V2's builds, and not having it really like impacted post nerf, it just felt very, very off, and not having the ability to have my like PvP and have my abilities feel responsive. Like when I hit them, they actually happen. Was rough to get accustomed to, but what it did do is it needed to be brought in line with a lot of these other sets, which are now significantly like more balanced, with one exception. I think currently the best set by far is Gloomguide, and Gloomguide is far too powerful for its ability. Like it's like any kind of corollary. It gives near 100% uptime in combat for 20 like something 21%, 21.5% crit or something with the 4-piece, which compared to say Shepherds, which caps at 18 if you have 6 summons alive at any one time. Which if you ever played with summons or had a shadow clone die instantly, they take 200% extra damage in PvP. That is the value of Shepard's 4-piece, which is considered one of the best, like the best PvE like 4-piece in the game, just from the amount of damage it provides you. The fact that is one so high is one of the big reasons why monks right now are like absolutely melting, is that they have a guarantee, like pretty much guaranteed crit after on at least some players, and crits if you have high armor penetration can deal upwards of like 250% or 100 or 250% damage to players in an AoE radius. The other issue with Gloomguide is the 6-piece is if you compare it to say the 6-piece for Feasting Barons. So Feasting Barons does a freeze when you defeat a target afflicted by your loss of control abilities, and this is specific to full loss of control. So this is a very limited set of things. So proximal fear, or like wraith fear, or like a stun invocation. You need to kill a player that is afflicted by that, and then at the around the player that you killed, it will freeze in a very small radius for like something like 30 some odd stat sheet damage, 30 something thousand. This is a very it's a long CC on paper, but it does fairly low damage, fairly low radius, and requires you to actually have killed the player during a short window of time, not after, but like during. Compared to Gloom, and largely when you're in PvP, or like even what's the word for it, in PvE, you're largely like doing that. Like those durations are over. Those are the beginnings of the combo. It takes a lot more to get through that by the end. So it happens at really wrong times. It's fairly useless as a 6-piece, but compared to Gloomguides, which while it also does the CC, it also does more damage by about I think around 25% more damage, and it has built-in mechanics to prevent it from being wasted when there is no target. So it's tied to your dash, where if you dash just trying to get back into the action a little bit quicker, it's not going to prevent you from. It's not going to waste that cooldown, or waste that 40-second cooldown, and it's tied to an active ability. You don't need to meet very specific criteria. So you do an AoE CC that is loss prevented, probably going to crit for some massive amount, and proc chip all on demand. And there's no other 6-piece in the game that's even remotely comparable, outside of 6-piece Grace, which is way too inconsistent. Imagine 6-piece Grace, but you could proc it on command. And that's kind of where Gloomguides is, and with a longer CC, if I'm not mistaken. And you were give it another 21% crit.
Could you use that with the teleport pence on the Necro?
You could, but then you would die. Paired
with like dash in, because you get 2 teleports, right? Dash in. Oh, but you don't have corpses.
Yeah, you could bone wall. You could do the bone wall dash in. You could do the wraith form dash in, but again, you would do this, and unless you were able to kill the entire team instantaneously within that CC, and also remember you've also given up your other CC to get these pants. So Wraith form, your Wraith form is only a dash. You don't have an escape. You don't have a movement ability, unless you have the Bonewall dash to dash out or another charge. If the dash in, dash out, they're out of the CC. You've only done that damage. But you could potentially do, like, you could maybe get that once every 40 seconds. But that's the thing with like these other things, is that there's no combo that, like, this doesn't fit into a normal necro playstyle. You basically expose yourself to be destroyed for a 40-second cooldown, that may or may not work. And I think that a lot of the problems with the 6-piece things is that they are so low value for such a long cooldown, where running like a 4-2 or even a tri-set is significantly preferable. But Gloom Guides just fits in naturally with a playstyle. They would be doing these things anyway, and it just happens. And it happens when it happens always at opportune times. And it's it's pretty much not gonna happen when you don't want it to. So the problem with like something like Grace 6-piece is that say like you have a dot tick that lasts a little bit too long, or like, hey, you have a seeping bile that stays on a target after you're dead, or gets transferred to like some pet. It could proc on that pet and burn itself as soon as you're alive again, and you have no control over when it happens. But think of this with, and it really only applies to the only class that can really take advantage of it is Monk at a really high level. I mean, it just makes that kit just very, very, very powerful.
I used to use it with the Crusader, with the little lance, because you had 3 dashes, along with the shoulder essence that gave you every time you use the falling sword. So you falling sword, you use this essence, the little lance, you get 3 dashes, and then the shoulder essence. Every time you did either stage of falling sword, you have 10% increased damage as a whole, not a damage to the falling sword, but your whole character would do 10% additional damage. So I can use my dash one time. I have 10% damage from the shoulder plus the Gloom Guide. Then, cast Condemn, then cast everything else that I wanted to do, Banner. And my damage was insane. And then you could do it. I could keep that up for 30 seconds in essence. 10% additional damage on the Crusader. Like, there's many ways I guess you could play around, but on the PvE mentality. On the PvP side, I guess I would be willing to try if I was going to go back to a Crusader again. But how do you combat? The question goes to, you were mentioning about perhaps having legendary essences for characters that would maybe dispel an ability or of sorts. Do you think that it still needs to be that it's better to have into a legendary essence where a character would have to sacrifice or lose on one of their awesome skills to be able to have the spell, or would perhaps something like that nature could be added into the future new 6-piece set that's going to come out when the next dungeon comes up, right? And then you can have a rotation of 2s and 2s.
I think adding some mitigation to CC or diminishing returns to CCs would be like, they can do that like through a bunch of different methods, but I think relying on it as a set would be I think poor design. I think giving a class's abilities to mitigate it on their own so they can play in different ways, rather than pigeonholing them into a set that would like require basically like you would be required to run. And we want more build diversity and more viability rather than single dimension. If everybody's running the same set, then what's kind of the point? I do have to step away here for a few minutes, but I will be right back.
I got to take some care of some IRL stuff, but appreciate the convo earlier and now as well. I'll catch you guys next time.
Later. I guess it makes sense. You don't want to have. Does make sense. You don't want to have damage mitigation on a set, so then everybody uses the same set, and then it becomes boring, right? It would be interesting to perhaps use. Yeah.
All right. Sorry, I've returned. I got time for if you had a follow up to that.
Yeah,
I
no,
had time
you're
for
spot
one
on. It
more
does
thing.
make sense to, not put into a set item because you're right. Everybody would end up using the same set, and you're just not going to be unique. It's not going to be, um, I don't know. It would be boring. Everybody using the same pieces.
I think they could potentially add it if it was in addition to the, like, if they added things that were just like dispels or way cleanses to multiple, like, to in multiple areas, so you can have a set that its value isn't going to be like, its value will still be very high, but there's other ways to do it. If it's the only way that you can get this either reduce these durations or flat out like remove them, and then people are going to be forced to do it. But if you can get that elsewhere without, say, like sacrificing a lot of offense for utility, then I would say that that's probably like that'd be a way to introduce it. I hope that like that they've taken that in mind, and maybe overall just adjust uh, some of the 6-piece sets to make them more attractive, or viable in PvP, because some of the earlier set bonuses are just so valuable comparatively. And if they added another set that's based around like reducing durations of CCs, say it's in line with feasting barons or V2 Zerges, and it reduces durations of CCs by 30%. Um, so like the same with increasing negative effects or decreasing negative effects, basically the reverse feasting barons. Um, that would be like, I think that would be like every build would have to incorporate it. And I think a lot of classes would end up just running 2-piece V2 Urges, 2-piece Feasting Barons, and 2-piece whatever this new set is. And it would almost not even matter what the 4-piece is, because like those are some of the best value for most classes.
Well, I wouldn't mind a mitigation of loss of control or diminishing of being hit with the same skills over and over. When you go again with multiple versus against multiple classes, and you have necros knocking you up or barbs knocking you up. Like, how many times are you going to be knocked up in a PG? If everybody is pushing on one side, when is it enough? Like, you could be stun locked
Yeah.
for the entire session that you're there.
That comes back to that, like, so adding in the CC like diminishing returns is going to be an very interesting thing. I think it's definitely necessary for the health of PvP in the game, but some like certain abilities are tuned around that not being around. Right now, like if there were diminishing returns of CC, if it was a barb versus a necro, and the barb has undying rage up, you, even with like low, like a significantly like a barb that has half my health, I have to spend pretty much all of my CC cooldowns just keeping them from like coming out. I gotta run
Yep.
away. I gotta like I have to I have to burn so much of my value that I would use offensively just to keep someone that like wouldn't have been a threat if they were any other class at bay. Um, and if they like, now, if you've given like some diminishing returns to that, you can't even do that. They would just kill you, and you'd really have no ability to, like, no recourse for it. So I understand the like, and so like, while I think they're going to have to tweak a lot of things if they add that. and make the invulnerabilities and the immunities to certain things a little bit like shorter durations to allow for like players to actually like um, have recourse in those cases.
And to allow players
Uh,
to play. I mean,
Yeah.
nobody wants to go into a match and not being able to play and just be stun locked. That it's not enjoyable. You
Yeah.
want it to be a fun experience when you do Battleground, right? You don't want to push people away, and it's kind of difficult.
Yeah, I think one of the things, if you go into a BG right now and watch the first engagement, generally like there's a funny thing that'll happen, and if it'd be just to like maybe as an experiment, if you're as part of that big like first team fight, watch how many little blue like stun circles pop up on you as you go through it,
Ancestrals.
and count the number of stun invocations that happen. I think I've had upwards of 3. I don't. Maybe I've gotten 4 of them. I think might even cap at 3. Like cap at 3 are that are displayed, but like three simultaneous stuns on you at the same time. I think while CC and knockups have been like a constant problem in the game. I think that stun invocations exacerbated it to the point of ridiculousness, and balancing the like kind of going back to Lida's point earlier about balancing around like the situation that shouldn't exist, like like the PvP mode is broken. I think stun invocations are just such a massive problem for the health of PvP in the game. And if we try and adjust things that based off of their existence, um, we need to remove them, or like at least not even have them be like part of the meta, in order to really know what is actually going to like be workable, or how classes feel. So if we remove that, I think like necros get a lot, like certainly benefited a lot from that, but also like had a huge amount of other like insane like skills and CC toolkit before that, and still felt good, but the game felt a lot more playable. I Yeah, so I'm hoping
Thank
that
you,
like
Gabriel.
the balance stuff, or by getting it back to a normalized baseline, stop adding increasing lethality without correspondingly increasing survivability. Um, in fact, it's since the beginning of the game, everybody's been very very squishy and done a huge amount of damage. Um, so I think just by increasing the health pools by and giving like range classes maybe like 15 or 10% damage reduction, like lowering the melee damage reduction to something more reasonable, like 30%. They should still get value, but uh,
Yeah.
and that alongside with the removal of stun invocations, I think would go a long way to seeing where we would go for class balance, because those are the 2 biggest variables that kind of break PvP.
Yeah, well, let's see how it comes out. I want 1v1s. I want ways that we can battle each other and put all this into settle all this, what class is suffering the
Yeah.
most to the other class, and then what better way to identify where you need to put some love into.
Yeah, I here's the hope, and we got some new changes that are coming out next week, so it'll be interesting to see what the power creep that comes out of the normal gem changes. I think that could go 2 ways. It could go with if it's something that affects CR, I think that would be very negative for the game. But if it's
Yeah,
something that just generally increases health pools in a kind of way that has diminishing returns, so rewarding players that have lower ranks, like so the ranks 1 through 5 give you the most value, and then you get progressively less as you go higher ranks, as a way to increase like overall survivability, that would be the best case. Because then majority of players are getting the highest amount of value, and the power creep for kind of whales is minimal. Like they still would be some, but in general everybody is getting more tankier, beefier, and more resilient to the abundance of damage and abundance of CC.
yeah.
Anyway.
The new set item is going to determine on where everything changes. So you could balance a class now, but it's going to fall on what the next set item is going to do. Because if you get something just like the Gloom Guide, like you're mentioning, some of these, you know, I don't know, whatever crazy terms ends up being on the new set item is going to off balance somebody because everybody's kind of really spread apart, right? So the balancing is a never ending game.
Yeah, it is. They have their work some cut out for them, for sure. Anyway, I do have to hop off now. I have to go to the raids. Thank you for having me. And I will talk to you later. I should be back to streaming pretty soon. I've been waiting for I have a new PC coming in, so but I was having some issues with the hardware and some loss of whatever it's called, performance on my end, and with the server stability and stuff, it was making it unplayable kind of. But I think that'll be like kind of started next month. I should be back on Twitch and fearing people and playing crazy builds again.
Awesome, man. Everybody here in my chat loves watching you. You do put up some really fun PvP stuff out there, man.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And anyway, I again really appreciate you having me on, and thanks for having me.
All right. Thanks. Later.
Have a good
Bye.
one. Bye.